There's someone here who wants to create a nice little boss handout. He's against Bolsa Familia, was against the gas voucher, and now he wants to create an employer handout so that the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule can be approved. It's already been established that there will be a reduction in payroll taxes exactly so that there is this compensation. But no, Nicolas Ferreira wants the government to give money to the boss every month. Hey, Nicolas, is it on credit? Is it debit or Pix, Nicolas? You don't like Pix, do you? Meanwhile, in the Hall of Justice, Nicolas Ferreira worked hard. Andre, he worked. Did he really work? Let's see here now. Oh, Jesus, turn on the light.
Nicolas Ferreira loves to make a splash on the internet, but he spent 180 days without showing up to work. Nicolas had 103 days off, missed 22 congressional sessions, and still had 55 days of paid vacation with public money. Do the math, 180 days without working. You can even call him Nicolas 3 on, 4 off works, 3 days takes 4 off. Here he is getting ready for another trip on the Banco master plane.
He likes to attack others but doesn't look at his own ass.
Other people's 6 days on, 1 day off schedule is easy.
Bolsonarism, enemy of the people.
Yeah, guys, that's tough, right? 180 days in the year and didn't even show up to work? What is 180 days, guys? Half the year. So we can put him on the schedule. Yeah, 3x, 4 or 4, 3, right? 3.5x 3.5 works 3.5 days, off 3.5 days. Yeah, because it came out to half a year. And they have the nerve to vote against the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. And since it was looking really bad because he was taking a stand against it, then he came up with that so-called boss allowance. No, approve the boss allowance because then I'm in favor. And it's there, it's right there. Oh my God, oh Jesus. Turn on the light because there are people who can't see. Nothing. Look here. The Supreme Court is evaluating the arrests of the former president of BRB and the lawyer under investigation in the Banco master case. The ministers of the panel are reviewing the decision of Minister Andre Mendonça. The virtual plenary session started today and will end on Friday, the 24th. And it is the second panel of the Federal Supreme Court that will decide this situation. I believe they will uphold the detention of both of them, okay? They found conversations, right, between Vorcaro and Paulo Henrique. And he is the former president of BRB, the public bank linked to the federal district, to the government of the federal district, who bought more than 12 billion in junk assets from Banco Master. They found conversations where it's very clear that he received bribes, millions of reais in bribes, especially in real estate, to acquire junk assets from Banco Master. That's why his arrest was ordered, as well as the arrest of the lawyer here who was mediating this negotiation with Daniel Vorcaro and Fabiano Zettel. And we always have to say and remember that Fabiano Zettel, who was the financial agent, according to the federal police investigations, was the financial agent responsible for most of the fake contracts, the money laundering. Fabiano Zettel, the brother-in-law who is in jail, Daniel Vorcaro is in jail, he is also in jail, was the main donor to Bolsonaro's campaign. He donated 3 million to Bolsonaro in 2022 and also donated 2 million to Tarcisio's campaign, being the biggest donor to both campaigns. And what was these people's interest in keeping Bolsonaro as president of the republic? Unless, it can only be that he had some benefits from this situation. And I believe that he will remain in prison, the former president of BRB. The question that always remains here, and I always mention it to you, is when will Ibanez Rocha be held accountable, right? Ibanez Rocha, the former governor of the federal district, stepped down because he said he will run for the Senate seat for the federal district. When will he be held accountable as well? I believe that the president of BRB, Paulo Henrique, who was arrested, didn't do it alone, right? And I hope that the federal police finds the evidence if this turns out to be true, and that Ibanez Rocha can go to jail. Because we're talking about billions of reais in public money that was used from BRB, which is a public bank, to buy toxic assets from Daniel Borca's bank. When will Ibanez Rocha go to jail? That's the question. And at the same time, we have to ask, when will Claudio Castro also go to jail? Funny, they're all Bolsonaro supporters, right? Claudio Castro, former governor of Rio de Janeiro, has already been removed from office, made ineligible by a decision of the Superior Electoral Court. Along with the then president of the Legislative Assembly, Rodrigo Basilar, who, by the way, is in jail and was also removed from office and declared ineligible. And besides that, there's the situation with Banco Master, where they took almost R$1 billion from the pension fund of public servants of the state of Rio de Janeiro and invested it in Daniel Bocaro's shady deals in toxic assets. Besides this situation, there are a number of other things that are being uncovered by the federal police. For example, before he stepped down, because you remember that he resigned from the position of governor one day before the trial, before the Superior Electoral Court, trying to avoid being removed from office. And with his resignation, which the Superior Electoral Court did not accept, the court rendered his resignation null and void. And they removed him from office since the resignation was a strategy to avoid being removed from office. Then the Superior Electoral Court ordered his removal from office and declared him ineligible. But what did he do? He used almost 1 billion reais, more than 700 million reais before leaving, and distributed it among some municipalities. All of this is being uncovered. Allied municipalities. And there's still the whole situation where one of his secretaries foi preso. Do you remember who threw money out the window? He was arrested for involvement in money laundering and possible involvement with the Red Command. And there is still a suspicion that the situation that happened there at Morro da Pena, at Morro do Alemão, was a cover-up killing to benefit the Red Command. Do you remember? Where more than 120 people died. Of course, there were criminals, yes, but there were also people who weren't criminals. So all of this is being investigated in this environment, including the federal congressman who is right-wing, Tony De Paula, who is even supporting Ronaldo Caiado. He has already declared explicit support for Ronaldo Caiado. He said he doesn't support Flavio Bolsonaro because he's a criminal. He is supporting Ronaldo Caiado, and he talked about this situation there in Rio de Janeiro. In fact, he said when he said that Flavio Bolsonaro is a criminal, he mentioned that everyone in Rio de Janeiro knows that while Bolsonaro was president of the republic, Flavio Bolsonaro was responsible for the appointments in the federal hospitals in Rio de Janeiro, and that there was a major bribery, money laundering, and corruption scheme going on there, and that everyone knew about it. He said he wouldn't vote for Flavio because of the Rachadinha scheme and militia ties. And there's also this situation with the federal hospitals in Rio de Janeiro where there was a huge scheme of corruption and criminal activity. According to him, it was headed by Senator Flavio Bolsonaro himself. Look at what he just said about the ally, which is also important for us to clarify. Rodrigo Batista Bacelar, who was the president of the Legislative Assembly, a state deputy, is from the same political group as the former governor of Rio de Janeiro, Claudio Castro, who was also in his political group. They're all from the PL, right? From the PL, Flavio Bolsonaro. Exactly. There were alliances, videos, and conversations between them. Everything about them is there. So much so that Rodrigo Bacelar was supposed to be Claudio Castro's successor. Rodrigo Bacelar was arrested. So much so that Claudio Castro appointed his vice governor in 2025 to a position as a counselor at the State Court of Auditors of Rio de Janeiro. to leave his vice position vacant so that when he stepped down from his position now, the one who would take over would be the president of the Legislative Assembly, Rodrigo Bacelar. He would govern Rio de Janeiro during this interim term and would actually be the natural candidate for governor of Rio de Janeiro with the political machine in his hands. Who, Andre? The one who's in jail? Rodrigo Bacelar. Do you understand? And they're all from the same political group where Flavio Bolsonaro was also involved. There are videos and several instances involving him and Rodrigo Bacelar, where at first Rodrigo Bacelar has even been charged with obstruction of justice for interfering with the course of the case. And now he was arrested for another suspicion. For what? Involvement with Redcom and money laundering, corruption, and so on. Do you understand, my dear, the bombshell that could come out of Rio de Janeiro any minute now? That's right. And a right-wing federal deputy from Rio de Janeiro has been talking about this on his social media, which is exactly Ottoni de Paula. Shall we take a look? What did he say here? A tico-tico? So we can understand that at any moment, a bombshell could come out of Rio de Janeiro at any moment.
My people, those who were born to be crooks will never lose their crooked ways. I don't know if you guys are following what former Governor Claudio Castro tried to do. The latest scam, the latest stroke of the pen, the latest dirty trick out of the pockets of Rio City and Rio State residents. The trickster, on the day he went to say goodbye, waving to the government of the state of Rio de Janeiro just to pull a fast one on the justice system and avoid becoming ineligible. He decided to issue a stroke of the pen order involving the sovereign fund of the state of Rio de Janeiro. And with a single stroke of the pen, he released more than 730 million for a spending spree in the municipalities of Rio de Janeiro. Of course, it's a spree controlled by his peers, isn't it? Because he's Alibaba, and every Alibaba has his 40 thieves. Actually,
here in the state, it's more than 40 thieves. It's way more than that.
But our acting governor, Judge Ricardo Couto, figured out the trickery. He held on to our sovereign fund. That's it. They've nearly spent all of a small fund. Yeah, my people, this gang, and they want to stay in power, okay? I've avoided mentioning Douglas Ruiz by name because I have nothing against him. But, man, the guy lent his name to front the racket, right? So I'm going to have to say it. I'm going to have to criticize. Right? Here's the thing. Wilson became Claudio, and Claudio is turning. He almost turned to be there. But he's turning into Douglas Ruiz. And in the middle of all this is Flavio Bolsonaro. Because it was him and his family who recommended Wilson. Witzel patted Bacella on the head. And now he's recommending Douglas Ruiz. I'm going to have to sing again. I'm going to have to sing. I'm not a singer, no, but I'm going to have to sing if you yell, thief. Not a single one of them is left, my brother. If you yell, thief, not a single one is left. God, country, family, and freedom. Your pocket?
It's really a lot of country and family, actually. But there's more news here. Rio de Janeiro. And I have something to say about Rio de Janeiro too. Pay attention here. One more.
That robbery was supposed to be perfect. The criminals were even having a snack in the house. The residents were out of the house. They were stealing with total ease, with total calm. The problem is that the police showed up. They had already turned off the cameras. Everything was set. They were so calm that they weren't even wearing gloves. When the police arrived, they tried to take what they can, but they leave a lot behind. And they leave fingerprints. Now the police are on point. They're collecting the fingerprints, and they'll find out all their names. I'm talking about Claudio Castro's gang. Yeah. Now the police, represented in this case by the new acting governor, Ricardo Poco, Judge Ricardo Poco, president of the state court, they're already going through contracts over 1 million reais with a fine-tooth comb. Do you know how much all of this is worth? More than 40 billion reais will be investigated. A fine-tooth comb. It's all going to come crashing down. It's all going to come crashing down. Besides the dismissals, there have already been over 200 dismissals. Those guys were messing around in the state government, Claudio Castro's gang. Now they want to return to power. Yeah, they have a candidate. Yeah, it's the Liberal Party crowd, the morality guys. God, priest, family, like daddy, God, priest, family, my wallet, and my wallet. Okay? This group left their DNA, their fingerprints everywhere. And now, my brother, the jig is up. You know the little song I sing for Claudio Castro's group? That wants to stay in the government? If you shout, catch the thief. If you shout, catch the thief, not one stays, my brother. Not a single one stays.
It's really interesting, isn't it? When you realize that one scoundrel abandoned another scoundrel and started talking badly about that scoundrel, you can be sure that there's a lot more to it than you think. Why do I say that? Otonio de Paula, he's a regretful Bolsonaro supporter. He says that himself. I'm saying this because he himself has videos where he says he's a regretful Bolsonaro supporter, that he believed in Bolsonaro, and there are even videos of him together with Bolsonaro. And he said that as a Christian, he was losing his faith. He was putting his faith in Bolsonaro, forgetting the love of Jesus, forgetting forgiveness, forgetting mercy. And there, kind of worshiping Bolsonaro, he became violent, full of hate, and kind of strayed away from Jesus. But not anymore. He said that now he's out and that he saw that Bolsonarism has nothing to do with being a Christian, and nothing means nothing at all. So when the crook starts attacking another, it's because the situation has become unbearable in the nuclear group's scheming. Do you understand, my dear? And the situation in Rio de Janeiro. When I look at Rio de Janeiro, I see Flavio Bolsonaro. And if we look at Brazil in a broader way, we can use Argentina as a reference. Flavio Bolsonaro, God forbid, I rebuke that in Jesus' name. If he manages to get elected in October, Brazil will turn into a mix of Rio de Janeiro and the chaos of Argentina. That's what the far right has to offer. Corruption, lies, kickbacks, militias, organized crime, and all of it under the guise of a pseudo-God, homeland, family, and freedom, where workers will feel the lash. Whatever rights and benefits they can take away from workers, they will take away. And whatever they can steal, embezzle, or pilfer, they will do, just like they're doing in Rio de Janeiro. And workers and the people under the lash, just like in Argentina. My grandmother used to say, my daughter, watch your back. Militia with God's name, bringing down the backs of others with a fake God, a false God. They themselves are the ones causing problems. 1 minute, quintas orciones, and that's it, goodbye. And what the far right has to offer is this. What Flavio Bolsonaro has to offer is this. Not for nothing, I always tell you, Flavio Bolsonaro, Flavio Rachadinha goes well with Papudinha. Many situations don't make sense. And it's interesting that the right itself is rising up against Flavio Bolsonaro. That's how bad Flavio Bolsonaro is. Caiado has become an option for the right. Soon Zima will be another option for the right. Renando Santos from MBL is an option for the right. And several other candidates are options for the right today because Flavio Bolsonaro is just too much. So that's why I always tell you, my dear, the world doesn't just turn. The world flips and flips and flips. And Lula, he's going to make it 4. There's no getting around it. No way around it. There's no way. Meanwhile, there are people who claim to stand for God, country, family, and freedom. And who imposed censorship on all of us? Who? Deltan Dallagnol? Deltan Dallagnol is out there shouting to everyone that he's going to run for office. And I've already told you, how can he run for office if he's ineligible? Then when someone says that he's ineligible, he says he's not. It's an abuse of freedom of speech and he wants to censor people. But it was the Superior Electoral Court who said that. It's the truth. It's a fact that needs to be said and repeated, especially in the face of lies, bluster, and fake news about him saying he'll be a candidate. He might even be able to run, but under judicial review. Even then, judicial review will be in the Supreme Court. He's already been ruled ineligible by the Superior Electoral Court. So these people are crazy. They say freedom of speech is for lying and for fake news. But when you tell the truth and everything, they say you're violating freedom of speech. It's crazy. Look at his situation here. Deltan, ineligible until 2031, is saying he's going to run for office. And when someone says he won't, he says you're lying. And he tries to censor you. Actually, Congressman Zeka said a little something about this here. Zeka is outraged about this. It's not the first time he's talked about it. In the face of this cynicism and the shamelessness of the ineligible Deltan, look here.
Look, ousted Congressman Deltan Dallagnol wants to impose censorship. He wants to silence us. He gets really bothered when it's said that he's ineligible. Take a look at these news stories. A wide range of newspapers. I must have listed more than 10 newspapers here, websites, national outlets, state outlets, and see what they say. The one saying that Deltan is ineligible isn't me. It's all over the press. And look at this certificate here from the Superior Electoral Court. Censorship is over in Brazil. The military dictatorship is over in Brazil. Brazil is a free country. There is freedom of the press. There is freedom of opinion. And of course, as a federal lawmaker, I have immunity for what I say because the Constitution determined it that way. Let's spread the truth, folks. Spread the news, show it the truth. Deltan is accused of having diverted $2 billion in public funds to a private entity. He has convictions, decisions in the National Council of the Public Prosecutor's Office and in the National Justice Council that weigh against him. That's why he resigned from the position of federal prosecutor, because he would have been convicted. And the Electoral Court decided that he circumvented the clean record law. He found a way to circumvent the clean record law. That's why his candidacy registration was revoked in the last election, and obviously it will be revoked again now. Comment on this video, share it, and like it.
Yeah, these people lie shamelessly, right, guys? And speaking of censorship, right, because Deltan Dallagnol is trying to censor us. So go ahead and put it there, just out of stubbornness, just for being stubborn. Write it there. Deltan Dallagnol is ineligible. He won't be a candidate. He's ineligible until 2030, period. Okay? And don't try to censor anything here either. There's someone else trying to impose censorship. Right, Andre? Yeah, who? Michele. What happened? Michele got in trouble. She's getting in trouble with the courts in the federal district where she lives. The trial judge already said that Michele is wrong, that she's trying to impose censorship. And now the Court of Justice of the Federal District also handed Michele a defeat, saying that she's trying to impose censorship. What happened? Do you remember Joyce Heisman? She's the other Bolsonaro supporter who regrets it. Got it? Understood. For example, you can use their channel. She made a video saying that Michele Bolsonaro was like an escort and that Michele Bolsonaro started a relationship with Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was still married, and that Michele Bolsonaro committed adultery with Bolsonaro. And the young Michele took Bolsonaro away from his wife because Bolsonaro has already been married 3 times. He swapped one for another and then another, each one tied down, and each new one was younger than the last. So she was Bolsonaro's mistress, and she caused Bolsonaro's divorce through adultery and betrayal by Michele Bolsonaro. According to Joyce Heisman, she said that she's a fake saint, that she was never a saint, and everyone knows her. Everyone knows what she's like and all that. Then she made a video and said that. Then Michele Bolsonaro got really mad, and she went to court to take down the video. The trial judge said he won't take it down. It's about freedom of expression, and removing it would be censorship. Why, Andrea? Because from what it seems, it's true. Then she took it to the Federal District Court of Justice. And the judges, 3 judges, unanimously said, "You're not removing her video. It can stay up." Are you trying to censor the woman? Did the woman lie? That's the question. Shall we see what Hassman said here? First, let's see her face so you can remember. Here, look. The Court of Justice denied Michele's request to take down Joyce's video. Porto understood that in a political clash between public figures, immediate removal of content requires unequivocal unlawfulness. In other words, there is no unequivocal unlawfulness in Joyce Hassman's video. And that if it's taken down, it could amount to prior restraint. Because the Bolsonaro supporters are always saying, right? Oh, because they're trying to censor, and so on and so forth. And now they're the ones trying to censor. What did Joyce say about this situation here, guys? About this quarrel between the two? Pay attention.
The Federal District Appellate Court has ruled against Michele Bolsonaro once again in a lawsuit she filed against me. So, here I am today, on the holiday, getting a little sun by my pool, and I'm going to talk to you about it. What happened was that unanimously, they decided not to take down the video where I talk about Michele because I'm telling the truth about her. And there, they make it clear in the decision unanimously that taking down my video would be prior restraint. We are public figures, both Michele and I. So you have to be able to take it. And what I said is the plain truth. The little saint of Pauoco is still the little saint of Pauoco even now. The little saint of Pauoco is the one who back then as a secretary was, well, a very forward young woman. A very friendly young woman with everyone. So this very forward young woman was the one who was with Bolsonaro, was Bolsonaro's lover, and married Bolsonaro. I only said what all of Brasilia knows. All of Brasilia knows this. Just ask the stones from the Three Powers Square. The stones from Praça dos Três Poderes will tell you what I'm saying, which is the absolute truth. So everyone, the state court did the right thing. They simply said, let's keep the video. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Taking this video down would be prior restraint, and public figures have to take the heat. That's it.
That's right. And here, everyone, I put this here to make it clear. I'm not here giving a morality speech. No. You can do whatever you want with your life when it comes to morals. Everyone does what they want. Michele does what he wants. Bolsonaro does what he wants. It's all fine. We have nothing to do with anyone's private life. Who she sleeps with, what she does, what she gave, what she didn't give. It has nothing to do with a man's life, a woman's life, or anyone's life. But the issue we have to bring up, as I always say here, is hypocrisy. Yeah. Because there are a lot of people out there who pretend to be saints. Have you ever heard of Santinha and Santinho do Palco? They keep pointing fingers at others, demanding a super high level of morality, while he and she are the biggest crooks, slackers, and scoundrels out there. So, like, you can be a crook if you want, you can be a scoundrel if you want, male or female. That's not the problem. Morality isn't the problem. It's the lack of character and the manipulation of people through religious fundamentalism. For political grandstanding, for perks, for the shady, rotten excuses so many of them make. They point their finger at you, act all saintly just to accuse you. But in reality, they're the devil. That's the situation. Where religious fundamentalism is used to manipulate people, even taking advantage of their good faith, in pursuit of petty political interests. And worst of all, they even use the name of Jesus for that. That's what my criticism is about. What someone did or does is each person's own problem. But at least have dignity and character. And cut the sleazy, cynical hypocrisy of pointing fingers at others. Because, sweetheart, you are not and never have been a saint. Because you're no saint and never were. Did you understand? It's the false moralism of the far right. They want to enslave people, penalize people, and punish people while they themselves are terrible. That's the situation. And speaking of hypocrisy, do you remember? Look at this one. Look. Do you remember? If you don't, you will now. Look at this scam.
Brazil was definitely going to turn into Venezuela or Cuba.
Yeah, it didn't happen. Brazil didn't turn into Venezuela or Cuba. And on the contrary, you made billions in profits. Look here, the hypocrisy.
If the left comes back, I'll have to rethink my life. And I say this, that's it. That's it. The hypocrisy. That's it. That's it. Using your investments based on politics.
Held back what? He made more investments and became far richer than before during Lula's government. Do you understand the hypocrisy and how people are manipulated because of a lack of information with fake news and everything else? That's it. Brazil was supposed to become another Venezuela, but for him it became a paradise because he became far richer than before during Lula's government. Why didn't you leave when Lula won? Since I had to rethink my life, I'm going to leave Brazil. And all for what? To make you panic so you wouldn't vote for Lula. It's the same thing that many are doing again. If Lula wins Brazil, I don't know what, Brazil will grow even more. If Lula wins even more. Look here, Luciano Hang criticizes taxes on social media, but campaigned for the bag tax. Lights, the businessman pressured Congress, thanked the senator, and defended charging taxes before attacking the tax burden. And I don't forget, on the day of the vote, there in the Chamber of Deputies, he went there to ask the deputies to vote in favor of the tax on cheap imported clothes. Because by putting a higher tax, people won't buy from abroad and will buy here instead, including from his own store. He went there. Now he's talking about taxes, about raising taxes, even though he was the one who encouraged it. He was one of the main businessmen who lobbied politicians, both deputies and senators, to approve the tax on cheap imported clothes. And now he's criticizing taxes. What kind of tax is that? He became an even bigger billionaire. Luciano Hang. Here it broke a record. Haven makes 18.5 billion in 2025. And it has the highest profit in history. Store expansion, cash reserves in the billions, and financial gains helped the retailer raise its profit margin to 25% in a year of pressured consumption. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Will he make a short video admitting he was wrong? I thought it would become like Venezuela, but it didn't. I managed to create more jobs. I managed to make more profit. I managed to start more businesses. I managed to open more Haven stores. Why, Andrea? Because the market is stable, inflation is under control, and even the dollar is going down now. So, like the GDP, the gross domestic product is stabilized, the economy is stabilized. That's how I managed all this. Do you think he's going to make a video talking about that? Or do you think soon he'll make another video lying about everything again together with Flavio Bolsonaro? What do you think?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, these people lie shamelessly. Like my grandma says, they lie shamelessly. Mercy. Oh my, it's always something. Meanwhile, Argentinians eat donkey meat and cats to survive. Sad reality. Poor donkey and poor cat. Yeah, and remember, Flavio's government will be a mix of Argentina and Rio de Janeiro. There's no way it won't be. Let me go through this quickly because I want to give you all the information. The Senate's Constitution and Justice Committee has backtracked, and Jorge Macias's hearing should happen on the 29th. So, Jorge Macias's hearing was set for the 29th to see if he'll be approved by the Senate after being nominated by Lula to fill Luis Barroso's seat on the federal Supreme Court since he retired. There are 11 Supreme Court justices, but there are only 10 right now. And Jorge Macias is likely to be approved, especially because he's evangelical and is getting support from many evangelicals in his bid to be heard and approved by the federal Senate. And in Minas, Tarcisio criticizes polarization, saying it leads nowhere, and praises Zima, who is likely to be Flavio Bolsonaro's opponent for the presidency. Zima, with his attitude, which I even mentioned to you all, is already here at the federal Supreme Court making cute little videos. And then he says, oh, it was just a joke, just a satire, whatever. What is he doing? Playing to the crowd to get Flavio Bolsonaro's votes. That's it. And I wouldn't be surprised if soon he puts together a ticket and then joins Ronaldo Caiado himself, right? Where Caiado actually is trying to get Gilberto Casado. So it's a total fight. And what's the total fight for Andre to take down Lula? No, it's to take down Flavio Bolsonaro to get to the second round. Yeah, it would be really weird to take down Lula. But the idea now is to get to the second round. For that, they need to take down Flavio. Let's see what happens. Tarcisio himself praising Zima at Flavio's expense. Look. Meanwhile, a poll shows that 71% of Americans criticize Trump for emotional instability. A shocking poll just came out for Donald Trash. More than 62% of the population disapproves of the Trump administration, and more than 70% of the population believes that he isn't quite right in the head and is unbalanced. The situation is not good for him, not at all. Either he ends that war with Iran or he's in big trouble. And what do I think? Oh my goodness, I think he deserves it. Hit the like button, like, comment, and share. At 4:30 p.m., there's a special clip just for all of you. And tomorrow, if God allows, I'll be here live again, my dear and my darling. Every day at 8:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m., and on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, every week here, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m., we will have the debate between the right and the left. Michele and I will be in the arena debating justice, law, politics. And I invite you, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. The link will be in the first comment. And by the way, this is for you to join the WhatsApp channel. Some people are not getting notified about the live streams. Here, I send you the links. Whenever there's something extra, whenever there's a live stream, I send it here first so you don't miss anything. And any other situation that happens that I can explain or make a quick video about, I also post it here on the WhatsApp channel. Join us here and be part of this new space of resistance, struggle, and wisdom. Why? Because we are solution-oriented. And we're with Lula. Tetra, if you like it, stay. Like, comment, share. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. Vote.